WTO is associated with long talks, various tariffs, customs quotas, imports and exports, as well as with other terms which our consumers sometimes do not understand. The task of WTO market program is to break all the barriers between buyers and sellers because we know everything about the prices. What are the top paper producing countries? Why in Kazakhstan it is prohibited to sell waste paper outside the country? How industrial hemp and a domestic raw material base are used in paper production? Reducing the world consumption of newsprint paper by 37% with a speed of 4% annually has become a major trend of the last 15 years. The main reason of the falling demand for newsprint paper was digitalization of periodicals. Paper can be recycled 3 to 5 times. Currently, about 50% of paper in Europe is made of trash or waste paper. In Japan, this proportion reaches 65%, and in CIS countries, less than 1%. Experts characterize the paper market as one of the most traditional in the world. The curious paradox is that in spite of the huge role of modern electronic media in our life, it does not reduce and even demonstrates a 1 to 2% growth annually. The paper market of Kazakhstan shows the same growth rates. The world output of paper reaches approximately 400 million tons annually. The major paper producers are the United States, Finland, Sweden, South Africa and Japan. Traditionally, cellulose and paper on an industrial scale are produced by states with large forested areas. These are, for example, North American states, Scandinavian countries, Russia and some tropical countries. Steppes occupy the most part of the territory of Kazakhstan. This has a major impact on the country's pulp and paper industry. The key characteristics of our market is that we, with the exception of certain enterprises, mainly recycle paper instead of producing it. Except 1 or 2 enterprises have no raw material base. This does not allow us to manufacture paper and construct a pulp and paper mill. The majority of paper manufacturers in Kazakhstan are processors of raw materials. In total, 418 paper-producing companies are registered in the country. Most of them are small-sized enterprises. There were times when we had no domestic paper manufacturers, except some very small workshops. However, since 2007 or 2009, our manufacturers began to recover. Many of them earlier were those small workshops. 5 projects to the amount of 1,965 million tenge were implemented under the state program of innovative development in the period between 2010 and 2016. 175 workplaces were created. An example is Kagaz Shakari SEZ. Major paper manufacturing companies are JSC Kazakhstan Kagazy, LLC Kagazy Shakari, LLC Kaz Polygraph and others. However, these enterprises often lack raw materials for manufacturing of their products. Many manufacturers of paper and paper products complain about the shortage of raw materials and scrap paper. To solve this problem, the Ministry of Industry and Development of Kazakhstan issued an order prohibiting export of regenerated paper, cardboard and waste paper from the territory of Kazakhstan. According to paper manufacturers, the accession to the WTO had a significant impact on the industry. Some types of state assistance were abolished because the WTO rules prohibit the local market players to create more favorable conditions. At the same time, the accession to the WTO encouraged many Kazakhstani manufacturers to develop their own enterprises. I think that the WTO was a litmus test. It has made a distinction between those enterprises and manufacturers who were more focused on state-guaranteed orders and encouraged them to evolve and be engaged in the market. This is very important because manufacturers should always remember that they should constantly work on improving the production process because their rivals are also forging ahead. Currently, taking into account the WTO conditions and rules, Kazakhstan needs to develop a strategy on overcoming the dependence upon imports and seek to create its own pulp and paper mills. This requires new technologies and investment. The main importers of Kazakhstani paper are Russia, China, Germany, Ukraine and Turkey. According to the State Statistics Committee of Kazakhstan, nowadays a slight increase in imports of paper and paper products can be observed. In the meantime, a tendency of some increase in export of paper and paper products can be observed. Our monthly output is about 500 tons. The bulk of our products are sold at the domestic market. Some part of products is exported. Currently, we export our products mainly to Kyrgyzstan. Earlier, we also sold our goods to Afghanistan, supporting the international coalition forces in the battle against terrorism. In 2015, paper imports in Kazakhstan exceeded 375 million. Exports in the same year reached about $12 million. Imports in 2016 exceeded 383 million and exports neared 13 million. The absence of the raw material base is not the only problem the sector faces. At the moment, the paper industry of the country needs high-tech equipment and its own professionals. We want to expand our production. Currently, we have two key problems. One of them is water supply. You know that any production process requires a lot of water, while the problem of water shortage in Kazakhstan still exists. The same thing is with power supply. For instance, a large paper-making machine consumes a lot of electricity. Nowadays, domestic paper manufacturers try to create a full-cycle production. Currently, Kazakh Hemp is building its own raw material base for the production of paper on the basis of industrial hemp fiber. Nowadays, this product is experiencing its revival, experts say. In Kazakhstan, we use non-narcotic brands. Canada was the first who started to use them 15 years ago. This idea was immediately supported by Europe and China, and taking all that, we decided to become one of the three leading manufacturers, if not the top manufacturer. Currently, the authors of the project, aimed at usage of hemp in the pulp and paper industry, meticulously study the best practices and exchange research data with scientists from other countries. We grow hemp in an area of 600 hectares. We have already developed the method of its processing. With time, we are going to expand our croplands and increase hemp production. Last year, we exported our products as an experiment. This year, we start to export hemp on commercial terms. Currently, we cooperate with Holland and Russia. We also hold negotiations with China and Germany. We plan to join markets of the European Union, Customs Union and Asian region. How to check the quality of paper? Why cardboard production is being increased all over the world? How do we know if we bought a high-quality paper? Specialists claim that it is quite difficult to determine at home because office paper sheets are almost identical. In this case, a professional assessment in a chemical laboratory is required. However, it is possible to define some parameters by eye. Low-quality paper has known grain structure, which is typical for normal paper. Its other parameters, such as density, whiteness and thickness, do not meet established standards even by sight. When purchasing paper, it is recommended to pay attention to its composition. Paper should consist only of cellulose. Cheaper modifications can consist of whitened wood pulp by 20 to 50%. There are also types of paper completely made of wood pulp. Such paper has a very low quality and it is not advisable when working with office equipment. Interestingly, top paper-producing countries are also the major paper consumers. The US heads the list. It is followed by China. Japan closes the top three. An average US resident consumes about 300 kilograms of paper annually. Germany is the top paper consumer in Europe with 250 kilograms per person annually. An average resident of Europe consumes about 75 kilograms of paper against less than 1% in Africa. A civil servant, lawyer or financial expert covers with writing 17 spruces. 55% or 225 million tons of all materials used for paper manufacturing are secondary raw materials. Trade in cellulose and scrap paper is annually increasing due to the growing mass production of new export-oriented pulp and paper mills in Brazil and Uruguay.